Today, more than ever, we need to find a solution to the growing crisis of the nursing career, the crisis of overworked and greatly understaffed nurses. Today, we're going to be going over this. Here are some of the things we're going to be covering today. As I stated, the growing shortage of nurses is becoming a great crisis in our country, and with the current global COVID-19 pandemic, this is becoming more apparent every day. Nurses experience a fast burnout rate and are often so exhausted that there are many poor patient outcomes. Also, the baby boomer population is reaching the ages of 55 to 73, and this is when a lot of people are going to start needing more and more health care. Some things we're going to cover more in depth in this presentation is some background in the nursing career field. We're going to cover the problem of the shortage even more in detail. We're going to review some survey information, go over 3 possible solutions, and my final recommendation for helping ending the nursing shortage. The nursing career field has roughly 3 million nurses to 382 million Americans. Now, in 2017, 76,000 people graduated with a BSN and their examinations were passed. Only 85% of licensed nurses are employed in nursing roles. If we could get more of those nurses that are licensed into the hospitals, it would greatly help. A nurse's median income is more than the average American, making the nursing career field more appealing to those in school. When conducting my research, I did do 2 short surveys. One was for the general public and one was for those in healthcare. I asked, were you aware that there is a nursing shortage in the U.S.? Out of 57 responses, almost 67% of people stated yes, they did know that there was a shortage in the U.S. On the positive side, almost 68% of people stated that the shortage has not affected their care, but unfortunately, that should be 100%. Patients' care should not ever be affected. Another question I asked was, do you feel that nurses' work hours are well suited for you or your loved ones? And it was about a 50-50 response of yes and no. And this final question I asked specifically to those working in the healthcare industry, would you say that nursing shortage affects the quality of patient care? And 100% of the people that I interviewed stated yes, it does. There is a problem amongst the nursing community of being understaffed, leading to overworked nurses. This has become even more apparent with the COVID-19 pandemic. States that are being hit hard or were being hit hard, such as New York, have been begging for help from other states to send qualified nurses to help with the load of patients. The first solution that I would suggest are mandating limits on work hours. Mandating limits on work hours is hardly a new concept, but is almost never enforced in the medical career fields outside of residency. Career fields such as aviation, trucking, and marine industries have already put mandates on limiting work hours. When these careers put the mandates on those working hours, they saw an increase in productivity and a decrease in safety incidents. It is obviously unsafe for people to be working excess amounts of hours. It leads to poor cognitive function, which can lead to further poor patient outcomes. This is a problem because many insurance companies are beginning to not pay for quote unquote never incidents. These are being incidents of such as pressure ulcers and catheter infections, all things that can be prevented if a patient was properly cared for during their entire stay at the hospital. This leads me into our next solution, a lower nurse-to-patient ratio. The average nurse-to-patient ratio outside of critical care or intensive care unit is 1 to 6. My recommendation would be change it slightly to 1 to 4. There would be a decrease in avoidable medical errors amongst patients if a nurse was able to spend just a little bit more time with each patient. COVID-19 has shown how poorly our patients' ratios can be during a pandemic. For example, many patients who are becoming sick, whether it's with COVID-19 or another illness, are staying in the hospitals longer because they're just not recovering as quickly. And they believe this is a link to not having that emotional support that patients would normally have outside of this COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Jeff Huffman, who's director of the Cardiac Psychiatry Research Program at Harvard-affiliated Massachusetts General Hospital, stated that there's no question that your state of mind can dictate how quickly you can return from a physical setback. If nurses could spend even 1 or 2 extra minutes with each patient, we might be seeing better patient outcomes. My final solution is changes to nursing programs. This is also my recommendation, which we will dive into further next. Some changes that would be beneficial would be to allow more students per program. More nurses could be put out into the career field sooner, aiding and closing the nursing shortage gap. In those programs, more forgiving and remedial learning programs. I don't suggest changing how competitive the program is, but just putting in more seats. The standards would need to stay the same. After all, lives depend on quality nursing. In most nursing programs, if a student makes anything below a 75, they are immediately kicked from the program. Here is where I would suggest a remedial program. As it has been seen over the years by teachers and students alike, no one student learns the same. One student may be a poor test taker. In a remedial program, the student would be able to showcase their knowledge and or skills. During the time the student is in a nursing program, they become close with their instructor as they have the same instructors throughout. By having these few instructors, the instructors are able to get to know their students better. Instructors should be playing in on their students' strengths and helping with their weaknesses. Quite often you hear that nurses eat their young, and this is very true. If instructors were to help with these weaknesses, we might see more nurses in the career field. Another proposal to the changing of programs is creating more off-site programs. So taking already established reputable programs and placing them in less populated areas. For example, as a military spouse, we are not able to pick the locations in which we live. More often than not, those bases are in isolated areas with no nearby campuses that offer BSN programs. By creating these offsite programs, not only would it aid military spouses, but it would also aid those who can't afford to move closer to campuses, allowing more students to have access to already built and reputable programs, thus turning out more nurses per year. And my final recommendation in changing nursing programs is introducing more programs such as those found at Wright State University and University of Florida. Both of these campuses have programs that cater to those with previous medical experience. Wright State's university program is built for LPNs, EMTs, paramedics, military medics, and any other healthcare worker with training in certain specialties and experience. Their program gives credit and provides an alternative pathway towards a BSN. University of South Florida has a program called VCare. USF's program is for service members that have completed training as an Army, Air Force, or Navy medic. Each of these programs takes the student's certification and hands-on experience and counts it towards the student's final credits and clinical hours. After completing interviews and being a former Air Force medic myself, more of these programs would be beneficial as they would be highly sought after by many. Those with prior experience and certifications feel frustrated and spoke down to when they essentially have to start over in order to advance their career, and it can be very frustrating. If an RN can walk in and take a test to become a fully certified medic, why can't a medic enter a program that is catered towards the experience they already have? By doing so, the medical community would see more nurses entering the career field at a faster rate. And for this reason, that is why I suggest solution number 3 of making changes to the nursing program. In conclusion, the medical community is hurting greatly due to the shortage of registered nurses. There must be changes implemented to improve the shortage. 3 solutions stood out: mandating limits on work hours, lower nurse to patient ratios, and making changes to nursing programs. And once again, my recommendation would be making the proposed changes to the current nursing programs. And here in this photo, you see a very exhausted and overworked nurse sleeping at her computer with 2 masks on while dealing with this COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for joining me for this presentation.